Hey, what's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the Land Development Podcast. I'm your host, Ryan Glick. If this is your first time joining us, each week when you tune in, you will hear one of two different types of shows. Sometimes when you tune in, you're going to hear industry news. That's where we pull up a few different headlines and we talk about what it means for the industry. Other times when you tune in, you're going to hear a interview style show. That's where we have on someone associated with the land development industry and we talk about their origin story, and we dig into some of the projects and things that they've worked on over the years. And today I'm excited to have with me JC Hearn, who is the CEO at JCH Equity. JC, how's it going?
Good. Thank you, Ryan. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I always start with the question when I have people on the show about, how they got into real estate. And so I'm interested if you could walk me through your process of whether it's something you've always known you wanted to be in real estate, or if it was something that you had a certain moment happen in your life that took you down the path of real estate.
Yes, well, I would say as with maybe some others, it was kind of a long path. I actually grew up in Northeast Kansas in a small farming community, Waterville, Kansas, and grew up around agriculture. So very familiar with the land and, working the land, agricultural use. But I would say at that point in my life, it wasn't something I wanted to pursue. I had traveled on vacation to Texas over 20 years ago, and I seen the growth and development here, and decided I wanted to get here as soon as I could to take advantage of opportunity. We originally started a company down here in the office supply world, and then started buying properties as an investor. Started like many people, single family, then got into land flips, seller finance notes, then eventually small multifamily, and then larger apartment syndications. And we're currently syndicating express car washes.
Okay. So something that we've obviously had, we had a conversation before we recorded here today. And so I learned a little bit about the different designations that you have, but I also know that you're in very like select company as far as people who have kind of the combination of different designations, like CCIM, ALC. I mean, the ones that you have up there on the screen, next to you. But I'm curious. I think a lot of people listening in, I mean, some people listening in probably will be familiar with all the designations, but there's going to be some people listening in who won't be familiar with them, or they may be early on in their careers in, whether it's land development or as a broker, an associate broker, or whatever it may be. And so I'm curious if you can walk through those, especially the three that you have up there, the CCIM, the ALC, and the real estate negotiation expert, like the three of those, if you can walk through them one by one and kind of talk about what they mean and kind of what it takes to actually get into one of those designations.
Sure. Yeah, I would say for people that are maybe not in the real estate brokerage world, they may not know what CCIM and ALC mean. But it is a certified commercial investment member, which it's kind of a rigorous education, training, and accredited or designation program for commercial real estate professionals. And you go through a series of courses and tests, as well as negotiations training. And then also you have to have a portfolio of transactions that you closed in that type of inventory, and then you set for a comprehensive exam. So there's about 11,000 CCIMs in the world because it is an international organization. The ALC is a accredited land consultant, which is a designation program through the Realtors Land Institute. It's a similar process of going through the testing and having a portfolio of transactions and setting for a comprehensive. And that's a little bit more select group. I say, there's less land guys out there. So, there's only about currently a little over 2,000 in the world. And then I believe that there's, if you add up the real estate negotiation expert, that's actually through NAR, National Association of Realtors. That's another training program. And then I have some other negotiations training too, just from my commercial background and investing background. But all told, I think from my estimates, there's less than 200 that have all three designations in the world.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing. I mean, that's not very many people. So, um,
Yeah,
so what are your thoughts on? So, all three of these designations and the other training and everything that you have, how do you see them coming into play, when you're doing a deal? Or like, do people look at them, and is it something that some people seek you out, or is it more so something where, I mean, obviously it gives you credibility with some people in the industry, but is it also something you lean on because you obviously did some sort of education that helped you prepare for certain types of transactions or certain things that are going to happen when during due diligence or what have you during the process? I guess, how do you look at these designations and the importance of them and how you operate?
Yeah, I would say, initially there's something that I did for myself. I've always been a lifelong learner and avid, reader, always into personal development, and I really wanted to do it for my own education. However, I would say the training in the CCIM and the Realtors Land Institute is excellent, and I would, attribute a lot of my mark. I mean, I had a depth of knowledge from being an investor, especially in investment analysis and some market analysis, but the training that I acquired through that process and the instructors in those organizations, it only deepened that knowledge that much more, and to where, my understanding. And I think too, technology is always changing. So like the softwares that are available, and I know that y'all are developing software as well that is really, really interesting to me, as a real estate professional, that, just having more capability and tools and access to be able to aggregate and analyze data is a huge advantage in this business.
Yeah. So looking at your company, then I know you're affiliated, I feel like, with multiple companies, and I introduced you as the CEO of JCH Equity. Is that your primary business then that you operate within?
I wear multiple hats.
Yeah.
So I am, in fact, the CEO and founder of JCH Equity. JCH Equity it's basically an investment company that we invest in different investment projects. Most of them are real estate, and then ones that we feel like offer a high value to other individuals, we allow them to invest with us. And but I also work and do a lot of land and commercial brokerage through Homeland Properties here in Huntsville, Texas, and we really work all over the state of Texas, and we're now licensed in Oklahoma and soon Louisiana. So
Nice. And I don't think you necessarily mentioned the why Texas. I know Texas obviously has a lot of opportunity and everything there, but is there another reason that took you from, you talked about going from Kansas to Texas back in the day? Is Texas, is there a reason that you chose Texas and chose to stay?
I would say maybe a little bit of divine providence. I came to Houston. My cousin moved to Houston, was very successful in the home building industry there, and came to visit him on vacation. And I just really liked it. The people were very friendly. It's still a very conservative value system, and a lot of friendly people. And I just really felt at home. And I seen the job growth, the population growth, and I felt like there's an excellent opportunity here. But
Nice. Did your
yeah,
cousin, so your cousin being in the industry, did you were you able to learn anything from him, or when you first got down there and started getting into the space? Or was it like being around him, knowing that he was in the, housing industry and everything, did that provide any value to you?
I think a little, at least some inspiration.
Okay.
So, he's always been entrepreneurial, and, he really opened my eyes to what was possible. And, I think watching him, seeing his success, seeing the amount of potential that the real estate industry had, it really wanted me to get more involved. And that's eventually led me into investing and buying my own properties. And then, two, I would say, reading Rich Dad Poor Dad really
Mm,
was a huge um, foundational shift for me, and just wanting to change my hat from, working more as an investor and a business owner versus other fields. And it was actually very interesting. I just met Robert Kiyosaki a few weeks ago at a conference in up in Grapevine, and that was really special to me to finally meet him and have him autograph my copy of Rich Dad Poor Dad. So
oh, that's awesome. Where was that at? Was that at a conference or?
it was, yeah,
Okay.
it was at Limitless, Ken McElroy in Tarley Arbor hosts that conference. So
Okay.
met
Well,
him, and
that's
RFK was there. So
nice.
it was, yeah,
Yeah, that's really cool to be able to have a, someone who was an inspiration to you as you were kind of coming up and just helped, like, I guess, set your path to a certain degree. Because that was a book. I mean, I read that book back probably, gosh, it's 2024, almost 2025 already. So I read that book back, I want to say maybe like 8 years ago for the first time. And it yeah, it was there's some eye-opening things. There's a different perception when you look at, like, you kind of grow up and you're taken down a certain path of, society kind of leads you down a certain path of to think a certain way about things, about real estate and just assets in general. And a book like that kind of can get you thinking differently, and it can come from that. It's like they say, right? You take advice from people who are where you want to be in the particular pillar where you're looking to go. So if somebody's a great husband or a great father, and you want to be a
absolutely.
great husband and a great father, you would take advice from that person. But if they're not good in something else, just because you take their advice on, fatherhood and things like that, you're not necessarily going to take their advice on how to run your business because they don't know that. So it's like trying to pick those different people, and sounds like
Yes.
Kiyosaki's one of those guys, especially in this particular pillar, that has helped.
I agree with that completely. I think that I've had mentors all through my life, and my grandparents first and foremost are they're very extremely hardworking. My father, I mean, and each one of them taught me something. And but Robert Kiyosaki was really the first one that introduced the idea, I think, of changing. In just changing your activity changes your potential and the potential outcome. So I was very, very pleased to kind of, and then once you do it and you start investing more, in land or whatever you choose to pursue, once you start to see the fruit from it, and then I was like, wow. And it was very unique too. I did actually a webinar recently that just talks about my background and my progression, and I was talking about how I changed my net worth dramatically, and it was really when I started to change my activities and what I spent my time on and what my focus was. And it's really all been through real estate investing and investing in general. So moving to
Yeah.
that quadrant.
So, on that note, if if you think about the number of like people that you've connected with and things like that, like what role has, you talked about the investment side, but what about the networking side? What role has networking played for you? I mean, we obviously connected with each other through networking and
Yeah,
everything, but
it's,
how has that helped you in, like, in your business and everything?
that it's been great. I mean, I admit, like a lot of people, well, at least for myself, I was a little bit hesitant to do too much on social media. I was pretty private and wanted to be respectful of my family's privacy. But I recognize, if we have something good to say, we should say it. I mean, there is some negative aspects of social media, but I think those that are going out and trying to help educate other people, encourage other people, talk about different charities and ministries that they're passionate about. I just wish I would see more of that on there. And I must say that I feel very fortunate to connect with a lot of other individuals that, through maybe content that we put out that, really resonated with it and was able to meet some really great people like yourself.
Well, I noticed on your website, speaking of content, that you have a course on your website. Is that a course that's, like, who is that, like, created for? Is that for people that you're going to be working with that can help educate them on the process, or is it more for people who are getting into the industry and looking to maybe do land brokering or things of that nature?
Yeah. So the course on our website, on the JCH Equity website, is really geared towards investors and just helping to educate them on different types of investments and, kind of walking them through that process. Early on, I had a limiting belief that I had to own every deal, I had to find every deal, I had to operate every deal. And then as you go further along and you see people that are further than you are, and you're like, how did they do that? How are they doing $30 million, $100 million deals? And it just amazed me. And then I just started digging in. Okay, well, they're partnered with this person and they're partnered with this person, and they're not doing it all on their own. Um, they're getting with other like-minded people, and they're putting the resources together and they're making it happen, and that's is a very powerful tool, I think, of leverage. Is, you're using other people's money, other people's talent, other people's resources, and relationships, even, having access to those types of opportunities. So we got into participating in several different syndications. We're currently part owner in about 1,200 multifamily units and 6 different car washes. And so that has been really, really powerful. And I just, it's been a huge, it's helped my family tremendously, from a financial perspective. And I just really want to share that with other people, because I think them not being familiar with it is maybe limiting them from realizing that they have access to better investments, and than they recognize. And many of those investments offer superior returns to, conventional investments that I have participated in before, like, the standard mutual funds or bonds.
Nice. Well, I think for anybody listening in who is interested in that, I'll put a link in the show notes so you can check out that training. So it'll send you directly over there.
Awesome. Yeah, I'd love to help.
Yeah, and
And
I'm curious. Oh, sorry. Go ahead. Go ahead. I cut you off.
no, I was just going to say, and the other part of it was, I just wanted to share some of the knowledge that I gained and share with other individuals, and, to pay it forward and help educate others. I think that's important to give back and to give to other people.
Yeah, and I'm curious because you mentioned about the power of partnering with others, or even syndications and going in on deals together. How what are some things that you feel people should think about when it comes to, and this probably is something you cover in your training, but so maybe this is just a sneak peek for people, but um, what are some things that you have to think about when you're trying to find the right partners on some deals that that you're looking to go in on and everything? Because I mean, I'm sure it's happened many times to many different people of going into a deal with someone that wasn't the best partner, or wasn't the best syndication to go in on, and then maybe they get burnt by something. Are there certain like key things that you think about?
Absolutely. Yeah, I would say that it's very important to know that person and align with them from a value standpoint. Like, if they don't have similar ethics to you, they're not trustworthy. I mean, if they look at their relationships with other people, right? Look at their relationships with their family. If they're not positive, then that's maybe an indication of the way they're going to treat you. So I think knowing that person, I mean, I know for me, all the partnerships we've done, we knew those people on a personal level. We knew their whole families. I'm not one to just jump into a long-term relationship. And so I think it's important to know the person. And if they're a really good person, things may not go 100% to plan, but they'll more than likely they'll try to make it right with you. And that's been important to me, to just align with other people with similar value system.
Yeah, I've heard a couple things when I think about, and I mean, this is, I guess, loosely related, but when hiring somebody, right? I've heard a lot of people talk about two different things. You have someone I heard mention like the car test, right? So they basically would have somebody be interviewing somebody, and one person would step out of the room and they would go look at their vehicle. They want to see how clean do they keep their vehicle? How organized is their vehicle? Because they
Yes.
see that as potentially being a sign of maybe how they're going to operate in the workplace. Now, maybe that's not always 100% true, but it was an interesting thing that made me think from that point forward. I tend to be a neat person, but I was like, I got to keep my car clean, because what if somebody's judging me based upon what my car looks like? They might think the rest of your life is just like your car.
Right. Yeah. It's surprising. I mean, everything matters, right? Like the way, and I think that goes back to the way that you do anything is the way that you do everything. And um, I think even just being diligent, like, I don't know, just little habits you pick up. I mean, making your bed every morning. I mean, it's just, to me, it's important to do things in a certain way, not because everybody is looking, but just because I feel like it's the right way. And so maybe it's not the easiest way or the quickest way, but I think maybe just a little bit of being raised by um, an older generation, growing up in a small town. Those kind of influences definitely, I think, was very heavy in my the way that I do things. And maybe some people would even look at it as a little bit old fashioned, but I just feel like it's necessary to do everything with integrity.
Yeah, I think you're spot on. I mean, it's very similar to like my oldest son ran high school cross country this year for the first time, and like cross country's over, and now the next thing is basically track, which doesn't start for several months, and so he now has to keep himself motivated to do things, and it's such a slippery slope of I'm supposed to run 3 miles today, but I'm going to do one, or I'm going to
Yeah.
do 2 miles, and it's like having I have those conversations with him. It's like once you start to slip a little bit, it becomes easier and easier to slip. And as you said, how you train is how you're going to perform, or how you do one thing is how you do everything. And it is a very slippery slope to, have one seemingly little thing that you do without the attention to detail that you normally give. It could bleed over into other areas of your life to where you now slack a little bit over here because you did it over here. And it's weird to think about that. And at a high level, you look at it like, no way, if I don't pick up this trash over here, that's all of a sudden going to make me do something poor over here in this area of my life. But gosh, it can sure do that. It can sure bleed over.
Yeah. And it's interesting you bring up your son. I think that that's great that you can encourage him. I know for myself, I'm loving having my accountability partner right now. My son's 15 and he's been waking up every morning, and it's 6 a.m. and working out with me. And that's been absolutely wonderful to spend time with him, and just kind of to start build those foundational habits in his life and see him develop as a young man. It's been absolutely wonderful.
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, I guess what one other thing I was going to ask you on the topic of in your company and everything, and I'm sure it's kind of a tricky thing to answer because it's probably not the same every day, but in your particular role, what does the day to day look like for you? I mean, are there certain you're looking at your? I mean, I guess from a high level, are you looking at your business, but you're also looking and seeking out deals and things of that nature? What does the day to day look like for you?
Yeah, I would say that my daily schedule just it changes a lot depending on the season. You know, you know, I do try to stick to a pretty regimented schedule of waking up every morning and, and working out with my son and spending time with him, doing a devotional time, having breakfast with my wife, and praying with her every morning. And that's kind of my front bookend. And then from there, I maybe sometimes I'm traveling for different meetings, conferences, meeting with clients. We are always actively looking at deals, but I would say that that's sporadic based on opportunities. So there may be days or weeks that we're pretty deal heavy of reviewing and underwriting and meeting with individuals. And then I have listing activity too that always comes in. So I have a personal assistant that I'm always delegating to. We usually check in first thing in the morning, go over, big projects that need to be accomplished, checking in on the listings, following up with owners, and monitoring traffic, managing offers. It's kind of a little bit of a flux, and then we'll do schedule meetings throughout the day, and really try to get home in the evenings to spend some time with the family and wind it down. But I would say like my day to day, it varies a lot between um, working on deals and working on listings, and also just a lot of meetings too between capital raising and clients.
Yeah, well,
So
you started out your day and you ended your day with something that kind of leads in perfectly to a question I have for you in this next segment, where we have a lightning round, where just curious of getting your thoughts on a few different topics. And this first one is around faith and family, basically. So the question that I had here for you was how has faith and commitment to family influenced your business decisions and leadership style?
ooh,
Yeah.
that in many ways, yeah, probably hard to contain just in this interview, but I would say it's everything. I mean, so if those are your key priorities, right? Like even the way that I structure my day, it's around those. I mean, in I would say even in this current season of my life, my faith, recognizing that we're all here for a higher purpose, and just very interested in seeing how much impact I can have while I'm here, whether that's encouraging somebody else, mentoring somebody else. I have other men that I mentor. I have other men that are mentoring me, and trying to become more. There's several charities and ministries that I'm currently involved in, and trying to even do more and raise more awareness about those organizations to have a bigger impact on others. And so, I would say it really is the motivation. It's my why of why I continue in this season to work so hard, is because I really want to have a big impact, and I want to be a benefit to other people in my family.
Cool. All right, next one here. What's the best piece of advice that you've received in your career?
Ooh, you have some good questions.
Yeah, put you on the spot a little bit here with with some of these.
Yeah, the best piece of advice. Um, I think from a person, maybe we should give context to work versus, but I think everything is kind of interrelated. I mean, love God and love others, and if you come from a place of, for one, I think it's a key, and that's my belief system, is just loving God is the most important thing that you could do in your life. I think that's why we're all here, but also loving others. Even in business relationships, when you come from a place of trying to help somebody versus trying to confront them or be transactional with them, it's a totally different experience, totally different outcomes. Even in negotiations training, like if you boil it all down, it's all about knowing that person and knowing how you can help them, and trying to come up with something that works for both people. And so you have to care enough to get to know that person to really know how you can help them. And so,
Yeah. I feel like that's one of the harder things in business and probably in life in general is I think people, I don't know why, but I feel like we have a tendency to think, I mean, we're always thinking about ourselves. And the minute you flip that into exactly what you said, where even as a business owner and running a business, the minute you flip it from how can I make this sale, or how can I increase my revenue, to how can I help more people? How can I help them solve their problem? The minute that other thing gets taken care of automatically. And I think it's hard for people to realize that if you
yeah,
just change your frame of reference to how you can help people, and you have to mean it too. You can't just, it's not a game. Like you actually mean it, that all that other stuff takes care of itself, because I mean it just does. It's just how it works.
yes, I would say for myself, and it goes back to the faith component to me, is life is not a zero sum game. If I get a piece of the pie, it doesn't mean you get one less piece. it, God created all of it. In His abundance, He can create more if He chooses to. And so, therefore, if I help you and you help me, and we can create something way bigger than we could ever do on our own. And that's the great, and that's one of the great thing about a partnership is working together. We can accomplish so much more. We can accomplish so much more working with God. It is so beautiful when we really tap into the power of being able to help one another, and not just fight over whatever's left. I mean,
Yeah.
it's absolutely beautiful. So I encourage everybody in business and in life, and that's when we're most fulfilled too. Is when our focus is not on ourselves; it's on other people, and we're a lot happier people when we do that.
Yeah. Well said. All right, next one here. What makes land and commercial assets more appealing compared to other real estate investments? Because I know you've mentioned land, and you've also had the car washes too, but I think the land and commercial assets seem to be the two primaries that you work in. And maybe I'm wrong, so you can correct me if I'm wrong there. But
Yeah, I mean, I've been investing for quite some time, and I've tried a variety. I mean, I've done quite a few different investment types, and but I really love land and commercial because again, this I believe God created the land. The supply is finite. I mean, and the demand is only growing. So if you can find areas where there's population growth, there's limited inventory. I mean, it's automatic what's going to happen to the land value. And if you can use your wisdom to um, create value on the land, or maybe that's just even reparceling it, you surveying it and reselling it. You can if you create value and it becomes more valuable, then you can benefit from that as well. But yeah, I absolutely love. I'm an analytical type person, so I love to be able to look at data and numbers, and really you can almost predict the future. If you are able to drill down and understand what the main indicators of growth and what's going to make the land valuable in the future, I think that you can predict with reasonable certainty what's going to be successful.
Yep. All right. What advice would you give to aspiring real estate investors who want to go down a similar path to you? So people who are just getting started.
Mm, don't give up. Yeah, that's the only thing that one of my redeeming qualities is just being persistent. So yeah, I think just growing up, in a very hardworking culture, and been very persistent. There's been many times I didn't know what to do, but I just through my own persistence and lifelong learning, like don't underestimate the power of compounding. So even in your knowledge, I see all the books on your shelf behind you, and that's absolutely beautiful to me because I've continually read and learned, and maybe I didn't understand the full concept, but then later I remembered it, and then it tied into something else, and it tied into something else. And the more you can kind of connect the points and understand things in life, it makes you much more valuable. And of course, applying that knowledge is key. Not, the knowledge is not valuable; it's application of the knowledge
Right.
that is ultimately what's valuable.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, last one here. What's one misconception about real estate investing that you wish more people would understand?
Hmm. I think a lot of people think that it's easier than it is in some ways. I don't know. I see that more, people trying to sell courses and
Hmm.
um, encourage people to go out there and, jump into. I mean, there's land flippers, there's commercial apartment syndicators, and I don't think education in itself is bad, but I do think encouraging people to do it on their own when they have no prior experience is a little bit dangerous, just because some of the deals are a little bit harder to get. They're easier to get into than getting out of, and so I think that's where you can really benefit by partnering with somebody that's more experienced, and offer value to them in some way, and you can benefit, so they can kind of help guide you through the process, so you get a little bit of experience under your belt.
Yeah, and I think going back to something that we talked about briefly earlier, just around social media in general, just social media is a great way for us to connect and everything, but it also makes it really easy for people to put courses out there, even if they haven't done it before. And so I think that's been as of late over the last several years, that's kind of been the that entrepreneur hustle culture that has been put out there on social media, where people can put out anything they want you to perceive their lifestyle or anything like that. And
Right.
so you sit there, and I think this is something I know a lot of people in the business world, especially new business people, fall into, is that you see somebody else who's telling you that everything's easy and they're living this lavish lifestyle, and quite frankly most of them are just lying about it in the first place. But you see that, and because it's easy for them, or perceived to be easy for them, and then it's not easy for you, I think to your point, like that's when people will give up. And so they'll basically say, well, I'm not meant to do this because obviously this person who sold me this course said I should be able to do this in this amount of time period, and I didn't make $1 million in 30 days or whatever stuff they're peddling. And so, yeah, I do think people need to be careful and really look and realize that, like you said, don't give up, but make sure you're taking advice from the right people and not necessarily going out there and getting that advice from the wrong people.
Yeah, I agree. You see the glamorous side of many businesses on social media and television, but it's not always reality. And so, I think it's a good way to maybe become aware of individuals that are involved in that, but always meet them in person, vet them, and hang out with other people that are doing what you want to do. That's It's been huge for me. Like I've always sought out mentors, and I would say, they always showed up when I needed them, that when the time was right. And if not, I just kept looking until I could find somebody that could teach me. Or um, a important concept that I learned early on is sometimes you work to learn and then you work to earn. So initially, you may not be able to get paid. You may just volunteer your time to offer to help somebody, and then eventually, as you gain value, skills and knowledge, you'll be valuable enough you get paid for it. So,
Yeah. Well, we are at 35 minutes right now, so probably a good spot to come to a close. So, for everybody listening in right now, what's the best way for them to learn more about you and your companies?
okay. Well, I would just say anybody interested in connecting, I'm on LinkedIn, Facebook, and you can go to our website, jchequity.com. I'm also here at Homeland Properties, and you're welcome to email me. It's JC at jchequity.com or JC Hearn at homelandprop.com.
Perfect. And I will throw all of that on the show notes page. So you can look down in the description right now, and there will be a link there, which will take you to the show notes page, and you'll find how to connect with JC there. Otherwise, hey, I really appreciate you joining. This was a really good conversation, a lot of good topics, and I know it's going to be helpful for people listening in. And yeah, so again, just really appreciate you joining.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me.
All right, last ask for all of you listening in is just hit that subscribe button if you're not already subscribed. We've really grown the show over the last year, and every new episode we get new subscribers. And so if you're listening in and you like what you hear, we've got a lot more good episodes coming up in the future. But that is all for the show. We will talk to you next week.